So I play guitar mainly. See, what happened is I played piano for a few years, but I found out that I couldn't really make my sound with it because I couldn't really wild out how I really wanted to on guitar. Like I love moving about the stage and having fun with the crowd, and I couldn't really do that with a piano. I could do a bit of blues, maybe throw my foot up and things like that. I prefer a guitar. I can get a more distorted, exciting sound.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, but today we are getting off the Bruce train, and we are exploring new music from a wonderful singer-songwriter from the UK. Emily Callacher is joining us. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's lovely to be here.
Yeah, so this is great. I'm excited about your new single that's coming out today. We're going to talk about that, but before we get started, tell my audience a little bit about yourself.
So I've been writing for a long time now. Since I was about 14, it hasn't been that long, so it's only been about 5 years. I love music, I love writing and playing, and yeah.
And where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Liverpool.
Ah.
Yeah. That explains my influence with the Beatles and things like that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a very fertile ground to grow up in, right?
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, that's nice. So I always like start out lately. How are you doing during this pandemic and all the craziness?
Well, I suppose I've sort of just been trying to take it day by day and trying to do like little acts of positivity to keep me going, kind of thing. I was doing a song a day for a while, so I was getting up every morning and playing a song on like my Facebook and stuff, and that kept me happy for a bit. But it gets a little bit boring after a while, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. I can imagine, like, oh, what song am I going to do today? And what song do I feel like doing? The beauty of that, right? Like, if you were feeling kind of sad, you could do a sad song. If you're feeling happy, you do a happy song. Or maybe vice versa. When you're sad, you're going to specifically do something happy, you know?
Yeah, try and uplift your mood.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you grew up in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Talk about growing up. Was your family musical? Did they have was there a lot of music playing in the house when you were growing up?
So basically my dad's into music, but he doesn't actually play music. So he used to play like all of his old tracks and things like that. See, I first started to get into music a bit when I was about 11 years old, and I started to play the piano. And my dad used to take me to piano lessons, and he'd put a different CD in the car each time he went, and that's how I managed to discover all different types of music, because he was into like his punk scene in the 70s and things like that, and he just showed me loads of different paths, and I fell in love with music.
That's kind of nice, right? That on your way to learn music, he's playing different styles and kind of, hey, this is what I liked when I was younger. That's a sweet memory.
Yeah, it's lovely. I also have like this, it's very, very faded memory, but when I was about 5, I went on holiday, and I wrote a song like for the first time in my life about pebbles on a beach. And I didn't know what writing the song was at the time, but it was the first time I'd ever seen a pebble beach, and I just had to sing about it. So
Do you remember that song?
not really. It's literally
I
very
didn't think you would, but yes. But that's interesting. I've had a couple of musicians on the podcast, Emily, and some of them will talk about that they didn't really start writing till they were in college or university, and
Yeah.
others, like my friend Sarah, she says she can never remember not writing songs. like from the moment she gained consciousness, just, humming and throwing together. So it sounds like that's interesting. You have that distinct memory.
Yeah, I do. I think it's because at that point I didn't realize what it was going to lead to, but I knew that it was going to lead to something else.
So as you start growing up and reaching your own, what kind of music influenced you? What did you like as you were starting to grow up? And then as you realized you wanted to write music your own, did you have some influences?
Yeah, so I have very different versions of this. So how I'll explain it is, so when I was in high school, I went through this phase of listening to the opposite of what like my dad used to show me, because everybody has that and they want to listen to something different. So at the time, I went into like this bit of phase where I used to listen to the likes of, have you heard of Black Veil Brides? Yeah, like Black Veil Brides and My Chemical Romance, and quite like heavy, distorted music. And I also like Led Zeppelin and like Jimi Hendrix and things as well. But I still love them. But I sort of tended to grow out of the heavier stuff a little bit more, because my writing style I found was more suited to the likes of like a bit Bob Dylan-y with some of my lyrics, but then a bit Led Zeppelin with like the heavy guitar and the
Okay.
bluesy vibe.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because the I don't know the Penn Jillette, who's half of the Penn and Teller magician, right? He talks
Okay.
about in that he thinks rock and roll is specifically rebellion, and that he didn't
Okay.
want his kids listening to the music he loved, even though he loves Bob Dylan and he loved, other musicians like, I'm drawing a blank now, Debbie Harry and other things. He wanted them
Yeah.
to find their own music, right? Because that's, as a teenager, it's about rebellion and freedom. And
Yeah.
and I think most of us go through that phase where you, like my parents were all about country music here in the U.S. Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, Hank
Yeah.
Williams, and that stuff I love now. But as a high schooler, I was all into Elton John, and because I went to high school I was in the '70s, so
Okay.
Elton John, Queen, Bachman Turner Overdrive,
Yeah.
Foghat, all these rock and roll bands. And now that I'm older, I've reached the point where I love both and I can appreciate that. But I think that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Then, so you talked about taking piano. Do you play other instruments?
So I played guitar mainly. See, what happened is I played piano for a few years, but I found out that I couldn't really make my sound with it, because I couldn't really wild out how I really wanted to on guitar. Like I love moving about the stage and having
Yes.
fun with the crowd, and I couldn't really do that with a piano. I could do a bit of blues, maybe throw my foot up and things like that.
Right.
But I prefer a guitar. I can get a more distorted, exciting sound.
When did you start learning the guitar?
I was about 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, you, so let's talk about your new single. Share me a little bit about it.
So my new single, right? The theme around it is about nightmares, okay? And it's about like having bad dreams as a kid. Now, everybody, even as an adult, to be fair, you tend to have a recurring dream
Yeah.
about somebody chasing you, and you can't wake up and you're dead scared, kind of thing. But I ended up writing a song about this dream that everybody seems to get of somebody chasing them, and they don't really know what it is. It can be like their past, it can be past memories, it can be anything, but somebody's always got something chasing them in their life, and that's what Run is really about. It's based on that.
First off, I have a couple things to say, but
Okay.
I'm going to play a little bit of it. And so the name of the single is?
Run.
I think to a certain degree, and I've listened to the song a few times. You were nice enough to send it to me beforehand. I definitely agree it's about nightmares, but I also think it's running from this year because this
Yeah.
year is so crappy. I mean, there has just been so many bad things, and I mean, starting obviously all the deaths is absolutely tragic, but even you go down to the smaller things of last spring, there were no graduations, there were no proms, there were no dances. You yourself, and I'm going to talk to you about this later. When's the last time you've been able to play in front of an audience, right?
Yeah. The last time I was able to play in front of an audience was in the summer. Lucky enough, we had a help out to eat out for like a
Yeah.
month in the UK, and that went terrible. By the way, our R rate went back up, and everybody went
Yes.
back
Yeah.
into lockdown.
Right.
But I won't get into politics. Sorry, yeah.
Right. No. That's probably Wes.
But I was able to play in front of a sitting down crowd then, but it wasn't the same as playing in front of a live, standing, uproaring crowd.
Yeah. Because Emily, and I had a guest talking about it, that we're certainly going to mourn all those people that got sick and the ones that passed and all the things, but there's also smaller things that I talk to people a lot, and I miss live music.
Yeah.
I miss that, going to see a band that you love or someone maybe you've never heard of, and the connection with the crowd, right? That you're standing up and cheering, or even if it's a quiet, you know sometimes you do an acoustical set and it's a lot more laid back and fun, but it's just not it's been a crappy year. So
Yeah.
I think that we all have those nightmares, and I certainly remember, having ones that I wake up and I have, oh God, that was the worst dream. But I also, to me, do you think it's a little bit about the year?
The thing is, it tends to reflect your life and where you're at the time, I think. So it's the same with every song, as everything influences what time period it was written, if that makes sense. Like, for example, like we were talking about the punk scene before, they
Yeah,
were all angry with the politics and the thing at the
sure.
time. It's sort of like that, yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose it
I
is.
think so. I totally agree, Emily. So I've asked this with a couple of musicians who've been on the show. I've been lucky enough to have 3 or 4 songwriters who have new albums or songs to promote. So I ask you, how do you promote a song when you can't get in front of the people?
Well, I suppose you got to get creative. So I've seen people doing stuff on TikTok recently where they literally try and make like 80s versions of like songs, like the music videos where someone's sitting in a pool and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to get some ideas of just doing random things kind of like that. I've been doing a music video socially distanced, obviously, and with a lot less people on set than we'd like. But we were able to do that, and hopefully that will be out on the same day as well. So that's all very exciting. And I've sort of just been promoting it through talking to people on social media. Though I have to say it's kind of lonely because I really wish that I could just play it to people or
yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, now I love the fact, and I feel very happy, your team reached out and said, hey, I see you do a music podcast. Is there any chance you would like to talk to Emily? And I said, absolutely. And so I'm really glad that, I'm sitting here in Dallas, Texas, and I get a chance to visit with you, which I may not have if we weren't doing this pandemic, right? You guys would be doing different kind of promotion. So in my
Yeah.
luck case, it's a blessing, but yeah, I get that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I want to go back to a little bit. When when did you start performing live?
I started performing live about 6 months after I got a guitar, and
Okay,
basically I had only learned one song on the guitar at the time, and it
okay,
was "She's Electric" by Oasis.
okay,
She's electric, right? And they had an Irish festival in Barcelona kind of thing, and it was in this pub, and I learned how to say in Spanish. Would I be able to have a go at your guitar for one song? And the band was like nice enough to say, yeah, we'll jam along with you. So that was like the first time I really got on stage in front of this big pub of people, and they were all singing along. And honestly, I looked around, I was like, oh, in that moment, I knew that I wanted to do it for like the rest of my life, to be honest.
So did you know they were going to let you? Or you just,
No.
no, you just, oh, how wonderful. That is great.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
just went and asked.
yeah.
Yeah.
That is, and oh wow, and yeah, I can imagine. I mean, that's more addictive than any drug, any alcohol, right? That joy of getting
Yeah,
up there and the crowd embracing it. So you
yeah,
knew you had to do this more, right?
yeah, definitely.
Uh,
It was just like, it was more, well, once I got that, I was like, right, I love the sound of a band. I want a band. So then I was in a little band for a bit. It was an all-female band. It didn't last, but it was great for a while. We done like, we went to like, there was this competition called Battle of Bands, and we got to like the semi-finals and things like that. And yeah, that was really fun. Yeah.
you know what's I the reason I love that story because Bruce Springsteen has a new album out, and the emphasis, the kind of catalyst was, um, he was in a band called the Castiles. That was his very first band when he was in high school, and it
Okay.
lasted 3 years. And he said, "You don't understand. 3 years in a band when you're that young is an eternity." Right?
It
He
is.
says it just there. He says, and the last there one of the guys who was in the band recently passed away, and
Oh,
Bruce realized that he was the last man. Everyone else that was in the band had passed, and so he was the last man standing, and that's one of the songs he writes. And so hearing your story, right, like my first band, all female band, didn't last long. Just kind of, he's 71 telling that story, that this was in the 60s. You said, you're 19, so this is in the odds, the 20. Nothing has changed in 50 years. It's still the same, right? Young bands don't last very long.
no, I suppose they don't, but at the same time, it was a big learning curve for me. It was like I needed that to learn how to
Yes.
play music and how to
Yeah.
write music with other people, and this whole big world of performing and working with other people.
Yeah.
but but
Do you,
yeah.
do you have a regular band you perform with back when things were normal?
Well, yes and no. So I was doing music in college for a bit. So I had like a college band with my outside sort of thing.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like I'm getting like a bit of a session musician together band, and
Okay.
hopefully playing with them kind of thing. But
Okay.
yeah.
Good. So as you started performing live, you mentioned your Oasis song. Were there How much of your first set gigs were original music and how much was covers?
So what we always used to do is we'd always used to do half originals and half covers,
Sure.
because we learned that that was always the best way to do it. My favourite thing about starting with my band in back in the day
Yeah.
was we'd always start with Sweet Child of Mine, obviously,
Okay.
but we'd always do a mix up where where you match two songs together. We'd always do Sweet Child of Mine going into Highway to Hell, and
Oh,
it worked
nice.
amazingly. Like, yeah, it was lovely, but it's that moment when it changes from the solo in like Sweet Child of Mine to go into the chords to Highway to Hell. You just see the crowd like, because you go to the chorus to the Highway to Hell, and it was boss.
That's neat. That's a neat thing, and very creative, right? That
Yeah.
um, because the beauty, if you're doing a cover and you're doing exactly like the original person, while it can be a lovely tribute, it's better when you find your own twist and kind of make it your own. That's
Yeah.
that is respectful for the original, and that's good. Do you? I'm sure now that you've got a more of a catalog. Do you still do some covers when you perform live?
Yeah, I do tend to do some covers when I perform live. However, I never do it like the artist. And the reason why I never do it like the artist is because my voice never sounds like the artist.
That's funny.
I
Yeah,
can sing, but it won't sound like it. So
yeah. All right. So,
yeah.
"Run" is your single. It's out today. How is the best way to find it?
So you can find it on Apple, you can find it on iTunes, you can find it Spotify, Amazon Music, find it everywhere on
Okay.
all streaming platforms.
All right. Very nice. Yes. And so, Emily, what's next for you? What are you planning to do next?
So currently I'm recording for a new single that will be dropping after this one, and then I am building up to do an EP, and
Okay.
then hopefully an album.
Okay. Good. That's very, very nice. Um, so, are what what are you finding challenging about working in the music business, and what keeps you going? Why are you're very optimistic and very energetic. What keeps you going?
Um, well, I'd have to say that the music business definitely is hard in a lot of aspects, and you'll get shot down a million times no matter what you do. But you just
Yeah,
got to keep getting back up. And I think the reason why I'm so optimistic is because I have this drive to want people to listen to my music, but like to
sure.
show people. Like I feel like I've got a message to give to people, if that makes sense.
Yes, it
And
does.
I feel like I need to work towards giving that message out to people, and even if it reaches just one more person, I feel like I've done what I've always been meaning to do. If that makes sense.
It does.
If I stopped doing that, then I'd feel like a lost soul, I suppose, because it's it's what I really care about. Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
my
Um,
love of music.
yeah. So, any stories from gigs that I haven't asked you about, or did you have some fun stories from the road when you were performing that you might want to share?
So I suppose when I was doing like one of the Battle of the Band scenes, I met some of like one of my closest mates now, because what they decided to do is they snuck backstage, but we never knew them at the time, and they
Yeah.
just wanted to meet us, which was lovely. But like they snuck backstage pretending that they were a band to come into our backstage area to talk to us, kind of thing. But we laugh back at that now because like we're all good friends, and yeah,
That's a good story. That's very cool. That's very cool. Um, what should I have asked you that I haven't?
oh, that's a difficult question.
I know.
um, I suppose everybody likes to ask me what genre I am of music,
Yeah.
because every time I try to like write a song, I always have like these different like ideas of what I am. And the truth is, I have no idea, and I don't think I ever will, because I like to do it a bit like how I suppose David Bowie done it when he went from album to album. If you don't recreate yourself in the music, then your music gets boring. And a lot of people tend to say like when Blondie, for example, went through a new wave phase, and everyone
Hmm.
was like, oh, she's lost her rock and roll, she's not cool
Yeah.
enough anymore, and stuff like that. That's not true. As an artist grows, the music must grow with the artist, kind of thing. So you must always be unpredictable and always reach a new crowd, a new audience, new music, kind of thing.
I love you saying that. And the reason I didn't ask that is, and I shared with you a little bit. I have a friend named Sarah Hickman who is now retired, but she probably 20, 30 years in the music business. Never, I mean, had 9 or 10 albums, never was a nationwide, but she earned a living and she was happy. And you could not put her in a box. Like there
Yeah.
was, every album was a little different, every song was a little different. And I used to tell my friends, well, what kind of music she does? She just does all kinds of music. You need to see her live. You just need to go see her live because each one's different. So yeah, I applaud that, and I think that's the right thing to do, Emily, is and I think especially in today's market, you it's going to be tough to get, you know, everything is so generalized, right? Like if I want to hear, I mean, there is a Pearl Jam channel on E Street Radio. There is an Elvis channel. There is a a Queen channel. There is, if I want just 70s rock, if I want new wave, if you can listen to it. And so I think the idea of getting a diversity and speaking to your soul and what
Yeah.
and you're listening to your voice, I think is well done. I think that is exactly what you should do, for what it's
Yeah.
worth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it is, Jesse, is it's this idea of you saying that you've missed the new music being live and stuff like that. But I also feel like with my generation, we're missing new music altogether because we're not seeing this raw live scene anymore. And like me and many other musicians, for example, in the Liverpool scene, are fighting to bring this live music back to society because it seems to have died away. But I'm hoping that we can fight for this to come back because of like we've coming out of lockdown and things like that. People have missed it, so maybe we can have this spark again, if you get me.
Yeah, because I know you guys do a fair amount of festivals. Same thing here, like in Austin, down south of where I'm at. They'll do Austin City Limits, and they'll do South by Southwest festivals where you'll have a lot of different bands. In the early '90s, Dallas, Texas had Emily Brickell and the New Bohemians, and a few other bands, including Sarah and Kill Bill, and some different kind of genres. And there was my wife and I, when we were much younger, right? I tell this story, Emily, a couple times. Before we had a kid, Sarah would play every Monday night at a little bitty club called Club Dada. So similar, picture a little pub, right? And so she would go on at 10 at night on a school night, right? It's Monday night. We got to go to work Tuesday. So we would get home and sleep till like 9. We would take a nap. We would go in our bed, take a nap till like 9, get up, brush our teeth again, drive down to the club, and then stay till midnight when she'd do a 2-hour, 2 sets at midnight. Then we'd come home, and we did that every Monday night. Just like we knew we needed, so we took that little nap to go do that. And
that's lovely. That's lovely dedication.
yes, it was funny. And it is, and I used to joke about as much as fun as it was to go see a big band like Billy Joel or Genesis or something, when you went to these little gigs, the musician, if you go up after the stage while you're wrapping up your thing, it's like, oh, thanks for coming out. How are you? What did you like? Right. And I said, yeah, Billy Joel never goes afterwards and says, hey, Jesse, thanks for coming to see me.
Thanks for coming to see me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They appreciate it more, I have to say. And I'd have to say some of the local bands are the most like electric scenes you'll ever see.
I totally agree. What's the strangest place you've played?
The strangest place I played. I've played a fashion show before.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah. So in the middle of like the models coming out in their big fancy gear and stuff, I'm quite small. I'm only about like 5'4", and they're all like quite tall, but they're like quite like 6 foot, obviously, because they're runway models. So I just come on stage halfway with my guitar, just looking tiny. I start singing at the end of the runway, but I must have looked a bit out of place.
Oh, that's great. I love that. But I bet you embrace that. I mean, I could,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I
Yes,
have a funny story, just one that I
please.
remember. One time, because like when you go to like your cousin's party or something, they always ask you to take out your guitar and play a song. I always remember at my cousin's christening, they asked me to play a cover, but this was back when I was doing my Marshmallow Skies thing. So I ended up doing that mix-up of Sweet Child of Mine into Highway to Hell. And all the kids started singing, the Highway to Hell song. And then I forgot completely that I was at a christening. Um, and it went terribly because I felt really bad and I had to apologise to everybody because the kids had been singing my Highway to Hell song.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I could see. Was it the christening party, or was
Yeah.
it okay? Okay, I was
You
seeing.
see, that's why I didn't realise, I didn't put two and
Yeah,
two together, but yeah.
the only
I
thing
didn't
could have
realise
been worse is at the church, right?
that would have been terrible.
Oh, that would have been great. Oh,
Reminds me of like Jack Black
yes.
scene.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned very early. Talk to you. You talked to me. You mentioned a little bit about the Beatles, but share with me. Going from Liverpool, obviously that was everywhere, right? And do
Yeah.
you do any Beatles music?
I know pretty much every Beatles music going. My dad has a saying that for every point in your life, you'll always have a Beatles song to go with it. He said that to me once, and it sort of stuck with me forever because I think it's correct. Like I remember, for example, when I was leaving high school, I had Nowhere Man constantly on because I felt this feeling of like I don't know where I'm going and things like that. Or
Yeah.
like when my sister was moving out my house, the song "She's Leaving Home," that one. But yeah, I love it. It's
Yeah.
vibing.
I'll have to find somewhere. Um, Someone posted um, a Beatles matrix of your mood. Here's the Beatles song to listen to, right? That was
Oh
perfect.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I find it, I'll send it to you. Yeah, I totally agree, right? They are, and I just had, and pull back the curtain a little bit. We're recording this early and we're going to drop it on the day your single comes out. But this past week, as we're recording this, was the anniversary of John's death, assassination.
Yeah.
And so I had a couple people joining me, and one guy has written several Beatles books, and he talked about that revolver with the idea of it's revolving. He said there is, even today in 2020, he said somewhere in the world at any given moment, someone is listening to a Beatles song.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thought.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Mhm.
is. Yeah.
Do,
Yeah. It is.
do you do you mix in a song every once in a while when you're performing live?
A Beatles song?
Yeah.
Sometimes, but I feel like within the Liverpool scene, if you
Mhm.
played a Liverpool song, like if you played a Beatles song in the Liverpool scene, everybody looks at you kind of like, not again.
Yes.
It's very overplayed within Liverpool,
Yeah.
but everybody loves it still, so they love the grassroots.
Yeah.
But they prefer it mainly if you're doing it in the cabin club. It
Yeah.
Beatles is always playing from there, but they prefer not with like newcomer bands not to play the Beatles.
Okay,
But
I could see that.
I
Yeah,
love it.
I could see I could see you like coming up with a unique cover, and kind of doing your own twist. I had that same question. Um, I don't know if you know the song Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
Kansas City, here I come. So I was in Kansas City, and Bruce opened the show with that, and I
Okay.
said, I said, I wonder if the people who live in Kansas City like roll their eyes and go, yeah, 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 play Kansas City. Turned out I've talked to a few people from Kansas City, and no, they were thrilled that he did it. They were happy.
Yeah,
I could see the same thing, right? Like the idea of,
definitely.
okay, really, you've got the you've got the nerve to kind of do a Beatles song. Okay, well, let's see what you do then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you are gonna do a Beatles song in Liverpool, it has to be perfect. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yes.
everybody knows every song that you're going to do.
Hmm.
So if you're gonna do it, they're all judging you with their pads. Like, oh, I've been listening to this since I was
Yes,
5.
absolutely. Um, so, um, any final thoughts before we get to the Mary question?
um, just that if you enjoyed today and if you like my music, that you can find me, Emily Callacher, on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and everywhere. It's
Do
a
you,
bit like Gallagher, but it's C's instead of G's.
yeah. Uh, Emily, are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter, yeah.
What's your Twitter handle?
Emily Calica.
Okay, okay. All right, I'll include this in the show notes. All right, so I'd given you the homework. So
Yeah,
let me give you a little background. Jay Armstrong is an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia area, and every year he has his honors English teacher, his seniors,
yeah,
study Thunder Road as a poem. They look at the lyrics, they look at the themes. He compares it to Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, and then they break it down. And at the end of the 2 days, he asks the class, "Do you think Mary gets in the car?" So, Emily, based on your thoughts, first off, did you know Thunder Road?
I didn't know it before then. No, I do
Okay.
know it
Okay,
now.
good. So, do you have any thoughts? Does Mary get in the car?
So here's my initial thoughts. Because it's a ghost town and he's talking about his love and things like that. I do actually believe that she got in the car. Yeah. Except how he says is he's pulling out of a town full of losers because he's going for a win. But I think that she ends up going with him in the end. But
Good. Good.
do
Um, yeah,
you?
well, yes, I do too, because I'm a romantic, right? I believe that.
Yeah.
About 40% of the people say no. They say that she's too afraid to take that chance. Um,
Really?
yeah, there's other people
No.
who say the line, "Hey, you ain't a beauty, but hey, you're all right." He said, hell no, I'm not getting in a car if someone says I'm not a beauty.
Yeah. See, I feel like because I view it as if it would be myself, I suppose.
Right.
So I'm very driven by adventure and passion and wanting to see new things. So I believe that Mary would have got in the car, yeah, to experience life, get out of this town, get out of this old town, and see the world.
Perfect. That's a great answer. I appreciate it. Emily, thank you so much for visiting with me. This was just lovely.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it, Jesse.
Yeah, Run, available everywhere you can find songs. Please download it, play it. Please go to Emily's social media pages. Let her know what you think of the song. She'd love to hear your feedback. And I tell you what, when you've got your next single or your EP, you got to come back and we can visit some more, okay?
I will do. Be boss, yeah.
Okay, well, uh, we are recording this before, so I'm going to say Merry Christmas. And I guess we'll say
Thank you.
Happy Boxing Day, right? Because it's coming out on Boxing Day.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Merry Boxing Day. That's another one as well. You wanna escape your family on Boxing Day, you know what to do.
Exactly right. Like, okay, I've had enough. Let me go get my headphones and listen to
Tune in.
the song. Absolutely. All right. Listeners, you stay safe.
Yeah,
Please remember to social distance, wash your hands, wear an effing mask. We need you to take care of yourself and be good to each other, because during this time, that's really all we have. For now, take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.
Thank you. That was boss.
Well, good. I'm glad you had fun. So, what did you think of Thunder Road since you'd never heard it?
I liked it. It definitely had country vibes, to be fair, for what I've heard.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I liked it.
Good. I didn't ask you, are you aware of Bruce Springsteen's music at all?
I am aware of Bruce Springsteen. I've been listening to him. I know more of his like big hits, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But they've been played in Liverpool quite a lot as well, with like the Beatles, weirdly enough.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.